Hello, Self Smarter listeners. It's so hard to believe that soon, like in 3 weeks, we'll be closing 2023 and saying hello to 2024. To get us ready, today we wanted to share one of our more popular episodes from the podcast. You loved it, and so did we, and it's all about gaslighting people. I have a feeling that's why you liked it so much. Since this episode was so popular, Danelle and I really feel like a refresher on this might be in order for all of us. As we prepare for 2024, let's just commit to be better, more helpful, and smarter leaders. And gaslighting is not a part of that equation. So let's all listen again. Thank you so much for being back, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, we're Danelle and Megan, the hosts of this conversation-centric podcast for leaders seeking to be better every day. Whether you choose to be a leader in the workplace, at home, or in your community, we believe the most effective leaders are equipped to not only be self-starters, but self-smarter.
Hello, and welcome to Self Smarter. I'm Megan, and this is my friend and co-host, Danelle.
Hello.
Hello. Here we are.
I've noticed that you keep singing our hellos.
Well, I like to sing hello.
Okay.
You know, anybody...
Become a thing.
Yeah, well, I shelter you from a lot of the singing that I do.
You meaning the listeners, because I don't feel like I'm very sheltered.
No. I even shelter you a little.
Oh, well, okay.
Because at my house, everything is a song. And I think that I annoy everyone in my house, including the animals.
Oh.
I know. They're like, stop. So I shelter it. But when it comes to hello,
Okay.
it's going to be sung.
Okay.
Sang, sung.
Right.
So your hair's looking awfully good today. I just wanted to note that.
Well, thanks.
It's nice to see you in person.
Oh.
And be here in the studio.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Because I can, give your hair a rating. I think we're at a 10 plus today.
Well, there's a reason.
Did you go to Truvies?
I did watch a little bit of that movie. I know.
Okay.
And if you don't know what we're referring to, Still Magnolias is my favorite movie, and I get people don't understand why I would subject myself to a movie of that nature, and I'm not going to ruin it if you haven't seen it, but I think of it as a Christmas movie, and I know that's a whole sidebar. But anyway, Truvies, Dolly Parton's role, and she plays a hairdresser. But no, one of my more favorite people on earth, which it's hard to imagine, but my beautiful daughter asked for this gift for Christmas that was rather expensive, and it was a hair thing.
Oh.
Like this Dyson
Oh, God, yeah.
hair wrap, air wrap. I don't know. Anyway, it looks like, yeah, it looks like literally like a spaceship of hair accessories and things. And the way it works is actually quite amazing. And Mackie has this incredible gift of when she receives stuff like this, she watches every tutorial and she masters things fairly quickly. Like I've watched her do this with makeup and hair and fashion through the years, and you've seen it too. Anyway, so I thought to myself, if you're going to spend this money, why don't you expect a little bit of the results of this gift? So this is the gift that I gave to her that also gives to me, and yeah, she fixed my hair.
Here's a question. Here's the thing I thought. Hair always looks so much better when someone else does it.
Yes, why? Especially in my case because of my lack of coordination relative to hair.
Well, I don't know anybody that can reach and do the things that they do from behind. That
Mackie
sounds
can.
bad.
Yeah,
but
no, Mackie can. Mackie's hair. You saw her hair.
I know.
You had us over for Christmas.
Amazing.
It was beautiful. There are women that can do that, and I'm sure there's men.
I can't.
Yeah, I'm definitely not.
It looks like it ends up looking like half frizzed, half straight. Mm-hmm. It's not good.
It could be the tool. You don't have the right tools, and for the bargain price of $600,
you can get.
There's something that exists that you can do it.
I wonder if that thing goes on sale ever. Probably not.
Well, I wouldn't. I couldn't catch a sale if it. Landed in my hand and slapped me in the face. Yeah. Anyway, thanks.
Yes.
I'll let Mackie. Well, she better listen to this podcast, and she'll hear you giving me the compliment.
And we will put a link to this hairdryer.
Yeah, because I told you I was complaining about it to some of the DMAers before the holidays when I was here.
Well, they all have it.
Well, yeah, Jordan's like, I got that last year.
Yeah.
I'm like, well.
I remember when she asked for it, she was like, I'm not going to get it.
Yes.
And she did.
Yeah, everybody was team get Mackie this expensive hair contraption, so I did.
Okay. Well, I'm
but
sure
not
Mackie's
on sale.
Very grateful.
She is. She's using it.
And her hair looked fabulous on Christmas Day, so yay.
Yeah.
Speaking of Christmas, we haven't talked about this.
not to go back to Christmas, but
it was a lovely Christmas.
It was lovely. I know you watched something that you had never seen before, and I couldn't believe it. So you had never seen Elf?
No.
But you have seen it now.
But you're not gaslighting me right now, right?
Am I? Am I?
Maybe. No, I'm just kidding. No, I had not. I had not seen the movie, which apparently I should not have admitted. But I will say, as I'm watching this movie for the first time, I felt like I knew almost so many lines of the movie, because what I didn't realize is all these years, you and a few others in my life have been quoting this movie, and I just thought you were clever.
Well, we are clever, and
a lot of your cleverness comes from this
Buddy.
Particular character, just like a Ted Lasso.
Old.
I felt like watching Buddy was like watching a version of Ted Lasso. And so I thought the movie was very cute, and he's in New York. So, that was very special for me too. But watching it, and I watched it with a friend, and we just laughed, and it was a good healing thing to watch. But I just kept going, Megan says that all the time.
All the time. All the time. But one thing we haven't talked about is, did you notice that the real Santa in the movie talks about where Ray's Pizza is, the real Ray's Pizza? Because Ray's is all over New York.
Ray's, yeah. Okay, I thought you said raised.
Ray's.
Okay, Ray's. Oh,
yeah,
yes.
R-A-Y apostrophe S.
But where it is, yes.
And he goes, but the real one is on 11th.
Right, Avenue.
Yes, Avenue. And
where the new place
someone
is.
has a new apartment there on 11th.
Someone does.
Next time I come, we're going to find this Ray's and we're going to try it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Who needs Little Italy when you have Ray's on 11th?
Exactly.
All right. Before we jump into gaslighting, which sounds like...
Man, boy, did we pick a fun January topic for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important that and I know you do
It
too.
is. No, it's very important because...
It's flying around out there like water, flowing like water, the word gaslighting.
Or gas.
Or gas. It's out there. And so we need to be aware of what it is and what we're going to do about it as leaders. And we'll do it right after this advertisement.
Hello, Self Smarter listeners. This is Hallie Caroline from DMA. Listen up. I wanted to share a new tool we've launched for marketers that may just help your business. And best of all, it's totally free. Our 2024 social media calendar is ready for free download on the DMA website. This calendar features 12 months of events and holidays that your team can use to prepare relevant social media content. Get your hands on the calendar when you visit dma-solutions.com. I'm also happy to send you the link. Just email me at info@dma-solutions.com and I'll get this tool on its way.
All right, Danelle. So to kick off our topic of gaslighting, first of all, the question for our listeners is, are you gaslighting and do you even know it? Because for us, I think we had heard the word, and then once we dove into the research about it, it's like, uh-oh.
Right.
We didn't know really what it was, nor did we know if we were doing it or we had received it. But I think we've come to a conclusion on that.
Yes.
So will you tell us, we always start with a definition. Let's talk about what is gaslighting.
Well, and I want to just back up what Meg teed up is that, first of all, I want to be very honest with our listeners. I was accused of doing it.
Same.
So when you're accused of doing something, you're like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, I literally didn't know what it was. And you and I had to look it up. And then that caused alarm. And then I don't know, it felt like...
We haven't been accused of it recently.
Oh, gosh, no. This was years ago.
And we didn't...
And then the Dixie Chicks come out with a song about it. I'm like, we better pay attention. Oh, they're called the Chicks now. Sorry. Anyway, always the Dixie Chicks in my heart. They wrote a song about it. So I'm like, okay, this is now
a thing.
A pop culture... And you start to see, because we reread so much in psychological magazines and all this stuff, the research that we do for this podcast and educating ourselves, you start to see it more and more. But I kind of always reflect back to that moment when I was accused of doing it and not really knowing what that was. But then through this observation, we realize that for certain generations, it is a common phrase. It's something that they're looking for.
Yes.
And oftentimes they're doing it themselves, because the way we're going to unpack this for you today is that it's easy to do this. It's easy to gaslight someone. It's easy for it to occur to you.
That's
and
right.
so that's why we've chosen to talk about something that's a little sticky and icky, because it's important. If you just understand it a little bit more, I think you can avoid it. Now, some people
manage it.
manage it, right? Especially if it's happening in your team. So to define it, gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which someone makes another person doubt their perceptions, experiences, memories, or understanding of events. So essentially what it is, it's a form of manipulation.
Yeah.
When it's at its most destructive state, and again, a lot of things that we talk about on here, there's a spectrum of impact, or there's a number of ways that we can look at some of this stuff. And what I have learned studying about gaslighting is that when it's being used in order to gain or control power, so as a power play, or someone is using it to preserve their own control or to seek control over a situation or someone. And when I started to realize that was what essentially gaslighting is, then I was like, okay, it makes sense that anyone, even those of us with, good intended hearts and those of us who want to be self-smarter, it's easy to find yourself potentially, especially as a leader, who are trying to move people and initiatives forward.
That's right.
How someone might feel that, they're being okay, and let's get this out of the way. It's either gaslighted. And by the way, on the internet, it goes both ways. And so for my grammar friends out there, listen, I don't know which way it is, but you're going to hear me probably say both when I'm referring to the past tense. But when you're being, you start to realize, wait a minute, if I phrase that a certain way, someone could take that, as being, they're being gaslighted by me, by what I'm trying to say. And if you think about all of us as leaders, especially those of us, let's just say 30 or plus years of age, or let me say it a different way. If you have 10 to 15 years of experience leading, whatever that may be, in the workplace, in your personal life, whatever, is that we have all had to work on updating our vocabulary. There's a lot of things about what some of us, especially depends on where we were raised or how we were raised, that we've had to work on changing our vocabulary for the better, if we care. I feel like gaslighting, for the most part, again, narcissists aside, and we'll talk about the most extreme cases of gaslighting, or those who do it and do it on the regular. We'll talk about those characteristics. But most of us who could stumble upon this one way or the other, it's usually around vocabulary and misperceptions, or the way that we're speaking and not intentionally meaning to do so.
Of course.
But again, is this a topic that we could, again, there's so many different ways, and it's a very subjective topic.
Yes.
But is it one that's to be ignored? I don't think so. Because I think leaders, when we're aware of it, we can mostly, especially those of us who don't want to show up that way, we can become conscious enough to correct it.
Yeah, what I wish would happen in leadership for me is if someone feels, if I'm talking to someone, and not to go off topic here, but if I'm talking to someone about something that I see that they can work on to improve in a role or job, I wish if they felt like they were being gaslighted that they would just ask, are you gaslighting me? To be fair, when you and I were accused of that years ago, first of all, we didn't know what that was, and no one ever told me that.
No.
It was like third-hand information, second-hand information.
No one, it wasn't told to our face.
No.
Oh gosh, no.
Somebody was like, oh, they're gaslighting, whatever. She gaslights me. Well, I wish somebody would have said that to me and been like, I think you're gaslighting me. Then I would have been able to say, what is it? And
help me understand why you feel
that way.
Yeah, educate me.
The fix to it is going to be two-way communication.
Absolutely. Yes, and trust.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that extinguish gaslighting: trust, open communication, understanding that different personalities hear and understand things differently, and that's why we study things like the Enneagram so much, so that we can help to avoid some of this stuff that's not intentional. So it's a very, again, one of those topics that I think we cannot ignore.
No.
So
I also think it's important to understand the origin story of something, and this one
is very interesting.
Unique. Yeah. Very. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it comes from, oddly enough, it comes from a play.
Yes.
From the 1938 called Angel Street, which was an Alfred Hitchcock show or a play later adapted into a film. And in the movie, the man tries to convince his wife that she's going insane so he can steal from her. And so when he turns on the lights in the attic to search for her jewelry collection, the gas lights dim downstairs, but he tells her it's all her imagination. Gradually, she begins to question her memories and her perceptions of reality. So he's literally convincing her, because he has control of the lights, that she's basically losing her mind.
That's right.
And his whole ploy was to create insecurity in her so that he may gain control. Therefore, he could steal or harm her in this way.
And spoiler alert, I think I saw this movie a long time ago. My mom was really into this kind of stuff. But I remember it, and I remember, I think the end, she believes that she's nuts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like she believes she's not right.
Yeah.
Danelle's all crazy, not nuts.
Mentally ill is probably what we should
Probably
say.
better. But I mean, like she convinces herself it's not even true. Okay, so that has a lot to do with it too. Let's talk. We started off talking about leadership. I think it's a good time now. We've talked about the definition and we've talked about the origination. Let's just get into it about leadership, because that's really what we're here to talk about. How does this even happen?
I know. Well, it's interesting because it's 1938 was a long time ago, and I'm not sure when the movie came out, but it's not been recent.
No, it's an old film.
But I do want to point out that when you do the research, is that why it has reemerged and why has it become part of our vernacular, and you can't ignore it. And I know we don't get deep into this subject on this podcast, and we have no intentions of it today. However, it really comes from the fact of people feel like they're being manipulated by the government. And so that is often how it has really emerged, especially with the millennials and the next generations that are coming up, is the manipulation they feel from politics or people in power. And then now it has become more mainstream, which is why it's important for us as leaders who, the two of you, we're not in politics. I don't know how many people that are listening to our podcast
Nor do we wish to be.
Nor do we wish to be. But when you understand it in that light, when you understand why it has become such a topic,
that makes
then
sense.
It makes a lot more sense, because I got to tell you, I can understand gaslighting as it relates to politics and the things that we're told and things by, the government. And I can understand where people can see that happening. And so if that helps our listeners with context, it certainly helped the two of us as we were wrapping our arms around what it is and where it came from and why is it a thing that's not just in passing now. It's really part of, again, the common vocabulary for folks. So you asked me, and I wanted to just interject that, but you asked me, how does it happen in leadership? And again, I think if you think about it, it's when someone is seeking power, and a lot of times this comes from someone who might be in a position of power. And the way we talk about power as it relates to leadership is meaning they have decision-making authority over or among others. And in this case, if a person in that seat is actually gaslighting, they're forcing that power upon the people around them. What's interesting is there's also the flip to that. So you may not be in a position, someone may not be in a decision-making position. Gosh, how many times can I say that? And however, they can be protecting or honestly controlling the work or the project unnecessarily because they want to feel like they have that power over that particular thing. So this gaslighting is not just something that happens in positions of leadership. And so that we need to understand that just as individuals and people who, yes, may be in a leadership position in one part of our lives, and then others, we may be the player on the field. So it's important for us to think about that. And the things that people that, when gaslighting is happening, it's the most common characteristic of gaslighting is a lie is being told. There's a lie being told, and the lie, again, is most often being utilized to protect the power.
Yep.
And to create a misperception so that the reality for someone else isn't true.
Now,
so
we have more experience on this one in work with our employees that are no
team
longer
members,
here than I can recall you or me sharing lies
right.
around the workplace. But the lie wreaks havoc. It's cancer.
It is. And if you refer back to our episodes 2 and 3, we did 2 full episodes just on culture.
Yeah.
And ours was a wreck. And I'll have
now we know why.
Now we know that this was a big part of it. And people were protecting themselves.
Yes.
And so they were making these realities that were not true.
Real.
Well, guess what? We were probably coming back with maybe not the most accurate vocabulary for addressing it.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'll take responsibility for that. And
Same, yeah.
this has taught us to be more conscious of that. Was it happening two-way? Yeah. In most toxic cultures, it happens two ways. Now, where does it stem from? It could start with leadership. Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, we're leaders who take responsibility and accountability. So I have to think that there was some reason why someone in our organization felt like they had to lie about their work. We put trust at the foremost of our culture, and we work around those things now so that we can keep this from happening. So that's very important. So again, there's a whole episode on trust, and I was lucky to remember 2 and 3, but I don't remember where trust is. But it was a great episode, and we talk a lot about how we didn't get it right for a while. Even though we are trusting and trustworthy, you have to really look at trust as something that you have to understand more innately versus or more or deeply, so that you're just not assuming, I'm trusted. Well, you know that's something you have to work on and earn. So again, at the core of gaslighting is typically untruth, and then those who gaslight, they seek to manipulate and control others by making the victim question their own reality or self-worth. And that's just icky.
Gross.
Yeah. Ooh. But manipulation oftentimes is an unconscious behavior where you're trying to sway another person to think something or do something. There's a big spectrum of manipulation as it relates to something where you're just trying to get your way, in the most innocent version of manipulation, all the way to complete and utter abuse.
That's right.
That we won't be diving into a lot today. That's for a conversation with all of our therapists. So, and that is what, again, what happens when people gaslight. They also tend to deny things they've said. Even in writing.
I mean,
I didn't mean it that way. Oh, I didn't, and it's this denial.
Can't deny it.
But that's why it's really important for, if you're in a circumstance where this is happening, and we'll talk a little bit how to, combat gaslighting in the workplace, but it's going to happen. There's just this denial of what's even occurring.
It's like self-protection.
At the core.
Guess.
Yeah. Oh no. At the core also.
Yeah.
But what's causing the lies, the manipulation, and the denial is preservation.
Yeah.
That's the root of what someone is trying to do is self-preservation,
right,
and control.
Right.
Yeah. So again, I know some of the stuff is a bit icky, but it happens in every organization because it naturally happens between people. And when you're a leader, literally needing to move people forward, whether that's growth in business, whether that's expansion of business, whether that's someone's personal development, there's going to be a time and an opportunity when this could potentially be a roadblock for you. And also important when you see it happening to those that you're leading, it's important to know about these things so you can identify it, because these are things that can be worked on, unless there's extreme cases, again, where extreme abuse or narcissism is at play. That's a whole another ball of wax that we are not accredited to even speak about. So
right.
We are not going to. And also those who gaslight, they tend to project their faults onto others, putting people in constant mode of defense. So it's never their fault. again, this is kind of where the narcissism starts to pop in a bit, but someone who's doing it, they're never in the wrong. So that to me is one of the most glaring, besides catching someone in a lie, is that someone who just will not accept responsibility, even when it's, clear as day,
right,
that they're at fault of something. They don't own it.
Right.
And they also take an extra step. They will try to convince you that it potentially was your fault or someone else's. So it's not just not accepting the responsibility, it's pointing blame on others. And to me, that's where, gaslighting can be, again, the most difficult to not difficult to identify, but difficult to address. So that's something we all have to watch out for. So,
I'm thinking of an example of gaslighting.
And you're laughing, and thank you, because this topic is heavy.
It is, but it was last night. So I'm going to share this story. It's so stupid, but it is an example of how I manipulated it. We're getting ready for bed. I fluff the duvet. I don't realize there's a phone on the duvet, a duvet that is Aaron's, and it goes flying and hits the wall. Okay. And he says, "Man, what's going on?" And I said, "How was I supposed to know there was a phone on the bed? How was I supposed to know?" And he goes, "With your eyes?" And I said, "But you never put the phone on the bed. You always put it on the side table." And he goes, "Okay. So, Miss Gaslighter,"
because he knows we're talking.
Miss Gaslighter, it was my fault, right? Because I put the phone on the bed, the youth slamming it into the wall, that is my fault. And I was like, "No, it's not your fault. It was mine." But
no buts. No buts and apologies.
But that's how it can happen that fast.
Quick. It's as simple, but I mean, if you're going to describe it and you're going to look at all the studies on gaslighting, that would show up as an example. And that's what we're trying to point out, for ourselves and for our listeners and leaders and those of us on this self-martyr journey, is this is how easy it can creep in. She wasn't intentionally trying to,
No.
it would be easy to be like, yeah, straight in the duvet and hell yeah, throw your phone went flying. But in that moment, you just...
Truth is, I didn't mean to do it.
No, you didn't mean to, but that doesn't mean that you didn't do it.
I heard it. I ruined it. I did something
You
wrong.
ruined the phone?
Well, I was thinking that in the moment after it smashed against the wall.
So it was like, abort. That's not my problem.
Yes.
Got it. You shouldn't have done that.
And I should not have said what I said.
No, I appreciate you being vulnerable with that and sharing that personal story, because it helps give context to how simple
it can happen.
This can happen, and that why we all are, we had the episode a couple episodes ago on being open-minded.
Yeah.
And it was fun getting ready for that episode, and you're talking to people and no one wants to say they're not open.
So close-minded.
Yeah, nobody wants to say that. And no one's going to want to say I have lighted people.
Gaslighter.
Nobody wants to say that. The reality, yeah, exactly.
No.
The reality is that it's easy for us to do this very thing.
But it's true.
Yeah.
In fact, in researching this topic, I found some examples of things that people who gaslight say commonly, and a few struck me as interesting. So the first one is, "Oh, you can't take a joke."
Oh,
I know. So you're being manipulated. And then you're hurt potentially.
Yeah, and you may say, that didn't feel good.
That didn't sit well.
Yeah.
And then the other person goes, "Oh, I'm just kidding.
Just can't take a joke."
You just can't take a joke.
Yeah.
Yuck. Here's another quote. You're just jealous and insecure. Oh, wow. You're just jealous, which I haven't heard anybody say that to me in a long time. Thank God, because I'd be like, "Excuse me?" Like, jealousy, no.
Right.
Insecure, maybe, just being vulnerable. But I would have that conversation now. Now I'm so into our personalities and who we are, I would challenge that.
Owning it. Yeah.
And be like, yeah. So I won't let them gaslight me if someone says that. Another quote is, "You're the only person I have with these problems."
Ooh.
And as a leader, I just want to say, first of all, I can wholeheartedly say that's not something I have ever thought to say, but I can hear it in terms of...
No one else around here feels that way.
Right.
It's so easy to say that.
Yes, or give someone the feeling that they're odd because they have a thought.
or they're alone.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have to really be careful with that.
Right.
And maybe we're saying things that are similar to this and not exactly in that context that I just read it or with that context, but not exactly verbatim the way that I just said it. But let's just be more aware of that.
Yes. Yeah.
And you found a cool quote.
Yeah, Dr. Henry Cloud is someone we follow a lot. He falls into that category of Seth for us and Patrick Lencioni. Yeah. And he has a cool quote that says, someone who gaslights you is trying to talk you out of your experience to alleviate their shame and responsibility to an issue. It's a tool to control and manipulate you. So again, it's just finding different ways to help us gain understanding for what this is. And if you think about it relative to, because I thought of this quote because I knew you were going to give those examples. And when we loosely say or tell someone they're not feeling a certain way, that's just danger on a number of fronts. And learning to not do that as a leader, meaning avoid telling someone how they should be feeling or that they're not feeling something. It's our responsibility to try to understand why they are feeling something so that we have a deeper understanding. So it's easy to go to as a reaction, let's change the way this person feels. Right. Because especially, I can tell you the way that I'm wired. If you tell me you're upset about something, hell, I just want to fix it. I just want to fix it instead of taking a breath, sitting back and allowing you to tell me why it is the way you feel before or I should not tell you shouldn't feel that way, but let the conversation come from a deeper place. So seek understanding versus the control of changing how you feel. Yes. Because it's easy for me to say to you, Megan, I just want to solve your problem. Well, maybe that's a form of control for me. And I have to be conscious of that. In some cases, it's absolutely not. Mm-hmm. But I think because I do want to solve things, sometimes it's not my job to solve something. Sometimes it's your job to figure it out. And perhaps all you need from...
That's a revelation for leaders. Sometimes it's not your job to solve something.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest
things. It's the person you're talking to's job.
100%. One of the hardest things I've ever had to learn to do.
And I bet you, for me too, like I know you're saying this, being very forthcoming and vulnerable, I'm saying, I bet you, then all of that's intentional, unintentional. If I have gaslighted in my history here,
sure,
it was 100% unintentional.
Well, yeah, if you
trying to solve my problems for me, gaslighting or not, you're trying to solve my problems.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
So behavioral changes are things that leaders actually have to deal with, right? Which is one of our challenges.
And it's why leaders aren't born.
Right.
Leadership is a learning journey. Absolutely. And this, for us, has been something that, again, I'll say it again, this has been on the content list for a while.
Yes, it has.
It keeps getting pushed down.
Kicking it.
And there's a reason, because it's sometimes, hard to see yourself in this light.
Yeah.
But we want to be the type of leaders that accept that, we haven't always gotten it right, which is the genesis of this damn podcast. Yes. So this is one of the things that we could easily find ourselves doing or ignoring that's happening in our organization. Yes. And we care so much about the culture of this organization that we're not willing to sit and ignore it anymore. So, and I also want to point out too that in knowing the nuances between gaslighting and just wanting to be helpful, or gaslighting and micromanaging, there's a big difference between gaslighting and micromanaging. Gaslighting, the person who's doing that is not wanting there to be success at the end of the day, except for their own potentially. Yes. And they're not self-smarter at their core. And so, and often they're hiding something. However, micromanaging is the example being a gaslighter is trying to manipulate how something is happening or someone is feeling, whereas micromanaging, they can be confusing sometimes. Micromanaging is, I'm telling you exactly what to do and I'm standing over you doing it.
Right.
Or watching you do it and all up in your business.
That's right.
That's a little bit different.
Right.
They both need to be worked on, but those are two different things in terms of what we as leaders most often have to work on as we continue to be on this journey. So I wanted to make that distinction. And as we're talking about people who do gaslight, there's some common characteristics that I think are important to point out. And some common traits are that they're highly manipulative personality. And so you can see that in people. And what's interesting is that there are numbers on the Enneagram that manipulation is their Achilles heel. And so, but we can all be guilty of manipulation. It just comes out in different ways.
That's right.
And so we have to watch out for that.
Because we're all protecting the hero, which is you, the person on the inside.
Correct.
That hero who was fluffing the bed, that didn't want to break her husband's $1,000 phone, right, is going to protect herself in that moment. So
because you would never want to break his phone.
Never. Yeah.
But you still want your bed to feel a certain way.
I do.
Yeah, and your covers. Yeah. Anyway, they also suffer from a low sense of self-worth or self-esteem. Now, that can be blatantly obvious in terms or hidden, which can come across as aggression. I'm dominant. I'm better than everyone else, and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
I could give so many political references right there, and I just bit my tongue.
Thank you
for the record.
Thank you.
Yes. They're insecure, and they constantly cover up this insecurity by pointing out other people's flaws.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew, I don't like that one.
Yeah. And then they're controlling to a point where they don't respond well when they don't have power. So when they're not in a position of power, they're acting out. They're either lashing out. I don't know what the professional word for pouting is, but pouting's pouting.
Yeah, it is.
They're fuming over there and about to, just causing such uncomfortableness.
Yeah, disruptiveness.
And then again, at that end of the spectrum, that is the most severe. I mean, again, it's the narcissist tendencies, and that's a whole nother topic. And, and again, I think that falls more into the psychological realm of discussion.
Right.
And maybe when we have Doc on here, my loving therapist who's getting close to being on, I think she might be on here in a couple of months once, therapy's wrapping up for me. So,
nice.
And I'm feeling really good about that, but she could help us talk through some of those things. So anyway, those are just some of the common traits that someone who is constantly gaslighting, like literally could be deemed someone who does this on a regular basis. So I wanted to point those out so that we can make sure that we can identify those in ourselves and potentially others.
Right. So listeners, that's it. Is there someone in your life who has these traits that you're now coming into awareness that, maybe there's some gaslighting tendencies there, or opposite of that, maybe I have been doing a little of this. And listen, we're all human and we all have things to work on. Now's the time to get a grip on it, understand what it is and and who you've affected so that you could potentially apologize or set that straight in 2023.
Absolutely.
So what if someone's being gaslighted at work? So you and I talked about this. We've talked about potentially we have been gaslighters here. Specifically, I'm clearly one at home.
You are not one at home. You can be one at home.
Yes, I can.
There's a difference in being and can be in a moment.
Yeah, I'm just more aware of it. But let's talk about work.
Okay.
What does that look like? How does someone protect themselves? What do they do?
Well, if you know that you are engaging with, a leader or a peer colleague where this is happening on a regular, I think there's some easy things to start with. And just so that if you all decide to research this, most of what you're going to find on the topic of gaslighting is happening in someone's it's a personal life. So that it talks about when someone is trying to control you or manipulate you in a certain way. And there's a lot of written out there. On the work side, it's a little bit
more narrow.
It's a little, I would call it shallow in terms of the amount of information. But I think these are pretty common sense things based on what we've talked about, but keep meticulous records. Yeah. If someone is asking you to do something and then forget about it conveniently, and then you didn't tell me, or there was a deadline set and they ignored that or whatever there may be, I think it's just keeping good records.
Right.
I think that's just smart anyway. And what we would call that back in the day is CYA, covering your ass. And I hate to think that is the case. But I think if you're experiencing something along these lines with a particular individual, then I think it would be important that you keep records relative to those exchanges. Absolutely. If it's continuing to happen.
And you and I figured this out again. It was about 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And what we decided we were going to do, because we identified the problem area, was we were going to send follow-up notes. And it's extra work, guys. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, it's more effort, but it's effort that's worth it. Because if you put in writing, so let's say I have a one-on-one with someone, and then I'm used to them coming back and saying, you didn't say that. Mm-hmm. You didn't say that, and I don't recall you saying that, nor that's why I missed the deadline, let's say.
Right.
Now, what Danelle and I said we were going to do is, with this person, this individual, every time I meet with them, I'm going to send a follow-up email for the record that says, here's what we discussed as action items. Boom, 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 and boom.
And my advice, and what we also do, is that not only when you send that follow-up, give that person a chance. Is this
what you heard?
Is this what you agree? Is this what we agreed to? Because sometimes, and oftentimes, we can just hear things differently.
I guess.
Not maybe specific deadlines or like things that are like actuals.
Yeah.
But in the nuance of discussion, especially if this person already realizes that they're in a, if they're getting caught essentially gaslighting,
yes,
they're going to be on the defense.
Right. So
this is a way to make sure everyone's on the same page. And quite frankly, it's just a good practice.
It is.
Especially when it comes to things that are subjective. And, we've been very open about the types of meetings we have at the company, from progress plans to CTI meetings, which are continuous to improve. Hannah keeps notes of things that are discussed that are subjective, because that's where things can easily get misheard. And I think that's where, on the innocent side of it, I understood that differently. Well, here are the notes from this meeting, and if you'd like to share yours, I'd be interested in seeing that. And as a leader, you can ask this person to provide you with follow-ups. It can go both ways.
Absolutely.
And so I think that that's just an important step in making sure we're all on the same page. And we do it mostly relative to someone's progress, because part of our progress plans and our development plans, there's a significant section on what needs to be improved. That's by design. It has nothing to do with us trying to manipulate or control. That has everything with us looking to advance someone.
That's right. Can you move the business forward in the area that you serve?
Correct. But if it's the wrong culture fit in your organization, that section of a progress plan or development plan or whatever your I don't know, evaluations or whatever that's called in your organization, that's where someone who's struggling can easily use that information and as an area of where they might have been picked on or whatever. But not in our organization. That has been the case in the past. And now that area of discussion with everyone in the organization is welcomed, and that's the thing that people look forward to. And so again, just working on that part of our culture was important. And I think back on how painful it was for us to have lived through some of that stuff, but now I look back and I'm grateful for those times, because it taught us a lot, and it taught us the importance of a lot of this. I think another thing that one can do is to gather information from other leaders, and involve them or note similar experiences. So if you're a leader and you share interaction with an individual that you think may be struggling, use that information. Or most importantly, leader to leader, no different than me pointing, so for instance, if I'm sitting in a meeting and I hear Megan make a comment, or if it's in our organization, if Hannah's in a progress plan meeting with another leader and hears a leader use language